Have you ever been in a situation where someone shared their deepest pain with you and you suddenly felt that you had to say something? Maybe you searched for the right words, hoping to make them feel better. You wanted to comfort them, so you said, "Everything happens for a reason," or "You'll be okay soon." Your intention was kind, but after you spoke, the conversation somehow felt colder instead of warmer. The other person smiled politely, yet you could feel that your words had not reached their heart. Moments like this remind us of an important truth. Sometimes the kindest thing you can say is nothing. Many people believe that good communication means saying the right words at the right time. We admire people who always know what to say. They seem confident, wise, and helpful. Because of this, we often feel pressure whenever someone comes to us with a problem. We think silence will make us look uncaring or unprepared. However, real kindness is not measured by how much we speak. It is often measured by how well we understand another person's feelings before we decide to open our mouth. One reason silence is difficult is that it makes us uncomfortable. When another person is crying or sitting quietly, we also begin to feel uneasy. Instead of accepting that uncomfortable feeling, we try to remove it as quickly as possible. We offer advice, tell a story from our own life, or search for positive words. Sometimes we are trying to comfort the other person, but sometimes we are also trying to comfort ourselves. We want the sadness to disappear because we do not know how to stay calm in the presence of pain. The problem is that emotional pain is different from a practical problem. If your friend cannot fix a computer, useful advice may solve the situation. If someone gets lost, clear directions can help immediately. But feelings do not work in the same way. A broken heart cannot be repaired with a single sentence. Deep disappointment does not disappear because someone says, "Stay strong." Emotions need time, and people often need understanding before they are ready to accept advice. Think about a time when you felt disappointed. Perhaps you worked hard for something and failed. Maybe you trusted someone who broke that trust. At that moment, what did you really need? Most people do not remember the advice they received during difficult times. Instead, they remember the people who stayed beside them without judging them. They remember the friend who listened patiently, the family member who quietly held their hand, or the teacher who simply said, "I'm here if you need me." Those moments may seem small, but they often leave the deepest impression. Listening is sometimes much more difficult than speaking. Speaking allows us to control the conversation. Listening requires us to slow down and give our full attention to another person. We cannot prepare our next answer while truly listening. We have to notice not only the words being spoken, but also the emotions behind those words. A person may say, "I'm fine," while their voice sounds tired and their eyes are full of sadness. If we only hear the sentence, we miss the real message. If we listen carefully, we begin to understand what they are unable to express directly. Another reason we speak too quickly is that we believe every problem needs an immediate solution. Modern life encourages fast answers. We can search for information within seconds, send messages instantly, and solve many daily tasks with technology. As a result, we slowly begin to expect emotions to work just as quickly. We become impatient with sadness because we cannot fix it immediately. However, healing is not a race. Just as a broken bone needs time to recover, emotional wounds also need patience. This is why silence can become a powerful form of support. Silence does not always mean the absence of communication. In many situations, silence communicates something that words cannot. It says, "I accept your feelings." It says, "You do not have to pretend to be strong with me." Most importantly, it says, "You do not have to face this moment alone." These messages are often far more meaningful than long speeches filled with advice. Of course, being silent does not mean ignoring another person. There is a clear difference between thoughtful silence and careless silence. Ignoring someone's pain makes them feel invisible. Thoughtful silence, however, creates a safe space where they feel respected. Your body language, your eye contact, and your willingness to stay present all become part of the conversation. Without saying many words, you show that their feelings matter. Interestingly, people usually remember how we made them feel more than what we actually said. Years later, they may forget every sentence of a conversation, but they will remember whether they felt accepted or judged. This is because emotional memories often remain longer than spoken words. A short moment of genuine understanding can become more valuable than an hour of well-intended advice. Perhaps this is the lesson many of us learn only after making the same mistake again and again. We speak because we care, yet we forget that caring begins with listening. Before offering comfort, we should first understand what kind of comfort the other person truly needs. Sometimes they want advice. Sometimes they need encouragement. But sometimes, especially during the hardest moments of life, they simply need someone who is willing to stay beside them in silence. That quiet presence may not solve their problem, but it reminds them that they do not have to carry their pain by themselves. And for someone who feels completely alone, that simple reminder can mean more than the most beautiful words ever could. As we grow older, we slowly discover that not every conversation needs an answer. Some conversations simply need understanding. This may sound simple, but it is one of the hardest lessons to learn. From childhood, many of us are taught to solve problems. At school, every question has an answer. At work, every mistake should have a solution. Because of this habit, we often treat emotions in the same way. We believe that if someone feels sad, our job is to make them feel happy again. Yet human emotions are much more complex than that. Sometimes people do not share their feelings because they expect us to fix them. They share them because carrying everything alone has become too heavy. Speaking honestly is already part of the healing process. When another person listens without interrupting, without comparing the story to their own life, and without rushing to give advice, the speaker begins to feel lighter. The problem may still exist, but they no longer feel completely alone. In many cases, that emotional connection is exactly what they have been looking for. This is also why silence requires confidence. It is surprisingly difficult to remain quiet while someone else is struggling. We worry that they may think we are not intelligent enough or that we do not care. We feel the need to prove our value by saying something meaningful. However, genuine support is not about proving ourselves. It is about giving the other person enough space to express themselves freely. When we stop trying to become the hero of every conversation, we become a much better companion. There is another mistake that many people make without realizing it. When someone shares a painful experience, we immediately answer with our own story. A friend says they lost their job, and we reply by talking about the time we lost ours. Someone tells us about a difficult relationship, and we quickly explain what happened in our own past. Although our intention is to show understanding, the attention slowly moves away from the person who needed support. Instead of feeling heard, they may begin to feel that their emotions are no longer important. Good listeners understand that every person's experience is unique. Even when two people face similar situations, they may feel completely different emotions. One person may recover quickly after failure, while another may struggle for months. One person may enjoy being alone after a breakup, while another may feel deeply afraid of loneliness. Because every experience is different, we should avoid assuming that our own answer will automatically help someone else. Listening carefully also helps us ask better questions. Instead of saying, "You should do this," we can ask, "What worries you the most right now?" Instead of saying, "Don't think about it anymore," we can ask, "What has been the hardest part for you?" Questions like these invite people to continue speaking. They show genuine curiosity instead of quick judgment. Very often, people discover their own answers while explaining their thoughts. They do not always need another person to solve the problem for them. They simply need someone patient enough to help them think clearly. Of course, there are moments when words are necessary. Encouragement can give someone hope. Honest advice can prevent serious mistakes. A simple sentence like, "I believe in you," may stay in someone's heart for many years. The important thing is timing. Advice becomes much more valuable after a person feels understood. If we speak too early, our words may sound cold, even when they come from love. If we listen first, the very same words can bring comfort and strength. Perhaps this is why the strongest relationships are not built on perfect conversations. They are built on trust. When people know they can share their fears without being judged, they become more honest. They no longer feel the need to hide their mistakes or pretend that everything is fine. Trust grows little by little through countless small moments of patient listening. It is not created by impressive speeches, but by consistent kindness. In today's busy world, this kind of listening has become increasingly rare. Everyone is eager to express an opinion. Everyone wants to be noticed. Yet very few people are willing to slow down and truly pay attention. Ironically, this is exactly why good listeners leave such a powerful impression. They make others feel important, respected, and emotionally safe. Their silence is never empty because it is filled with attention, empathy, and care. Maybe that is the true meaning of kindness. It is not always found in beautiful sentences or clever advice. Sometimes kindness is sitting beside someone after they have received terrible news. Sometimes it is allowing a friend to cry without telling them to stop. Sometimes it is accepting a long silence because you know the other person is searching for words that are difficult to say. These moments may appear ordinary, but they often become unforgettable memories for the people who experience them. The next time someone trusts you with their pain, remember that you do not have to carry the pressure of finding the perfect response. Listen before you speak. Understand before you explain. Be present before you try to solve anything. You may discover that your quiet attention brings more comfort than your best advice ever could. In the end, people rarely expect us to remove all of their sadness. What they truly hope for is someone who is willing to stay beside them until they are strong enough to continue on their own. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can say is not another sentence. It is the peaceful silence that tells someone, without using any words at all, "You don't have to face this alone."